Welcome to the BXG Podcast, the podcast where pop culture and nerd culture meet.
You think it's just going to be barbecue sauce?
Because if you actually read those books, it's just gobbledygook.
I really think clothes should be mandatory.
Speaking of Star Wars,
Captain America.
trailer reaction video. Pinocchio. Guillermo Del Toro's Pinocchio available on Netflix, nominated for a Golden Globe for Best Animated Picture, starring a veritable all-star cast of characters. Ewan McGregor as Sebastian J. Cricket. Edward Bradley, I believe is his name, is Geppetto, if that's accurate. Christopher Waltz also shows up here as the Count. And the kick-ass Duke. Okay, David Bradley as Geppetto. Ewan McGregor, Gregory Mann as Pinocchio, the little boy, Bern Gorman, John Turturro, Ron Perlman as Podesta, Finn Wolfhard as Candlewick, Kate Blanchett as Spazzatura, which didn't make sense to me because that's just the monkey. Tilda Swinton as the Wood Sprite. Christopher Waltz, Count Volpe. Tim Blake Nelson is the Black Rabbit. So, all-star cast, stop motion animation. I would recommend with this the 35-minute featurette, also found on Netflix, with the making of this particular film. Obviously, it is the story of Pinocchio from the novel from the late 1800s, reimagined in a way that is, I think, very heartbreaking.
Yes.
In the sense that how this sort of pans out versus the Disney animated and then the subsequent Disney live action film that also debuted last year with Tom Hanks and Joseph Gordon-Levitt. What did you think of Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio?
I mean, when you brought up the part about being heartbreaking, I always forget how effed up Pinocchio actually is, the real storyline. He goes to hell and he keeps dying, all that. I loved it. I was fully, when we talk about things being visually captivating, this was that. When the big whale comes out and that happens, that's moving. There's something about that where it really just kind of holds. And I'll be honest, the Pinocchio, Disney Pinocchio is not one of my favorites. It's okay. It is what it is, but it just doesn't really do a lot for me compared to other, I guess, Disney princess movies or something. But this one just had me. It was just, beginning and end really good. The storyline was really good. You get irritated with Pinocchio. You get irritated with, certain characters or whatever. But at the end of the day, there is that actual storyline about being good and being caring and putting kind of the things out there, and not Jiminy Cricket, but Jiminy Cricket,
Sebastian J.
saving Sebastian J. Cricket, saving his wish to save Pinocchio, and all these different little things that just really work. And then it's just so beautifully put together that it's just a great movie. And for me, it was one of those things where they don't make them like they, it sounds funny, but it's they don't make them like they used to. Yeah. And this was that kind of movie where it hits everything. And it was 2 hours, but it didn't feel like 2 hours. When you told me it was 2 hours, oh boy.
Yeah.
No, I was when it was over, I was okay, that was fine. I wasn't I didn't necessarily need more or anything, but I was this was the perfect length of this movie because I didn't think there was anything that was filler. I thought that everything worked in the middle, even if it was something that didn't necessarily seem necessary. I still think it worked because you're still trying to make a movie. And then also it just fit so perfectly. For me, it was heartbreaking in the first 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Entirely heartbreaking. I mean, you sent me a text about it. And it's even more heartbreaking than someone telling you it is. I mean, that's rough. And then Pinocchio's story is heartbreaking on all accounts. Because he does wrong, he does right, he can't figure it out.
Yeah.
And that's kind of life. I mean, I think that's what makes this one so, for me, so endearing, is it's more lifelike. It's more of like, yeah, sometimes we F up. And sometimes we need to be accountable. And I think that for me, you had mentioned that this might be, the best movie of the year or something like that. And I don't necessarily know if it's up there though. I'll be honest, it's definitely up there. Is it my favorite movie of the year? Probably not, but I liked it way more than I was expecting to. I will 100% say that.
I think from a story perspective, the old saying, I was born at night, but not last night, kind of rings true here, because Pinocchio literally was born last night. And then he's thrust into this role of being this drunk's, this guy who's basically a drunk, his replacement son. And he doesn't know the world. He's trying to learn and do the best he can. And I really appreciated the fact that we all know the story of Pinocchio, where Pinocchio, he lies and his nose grows, right? That wasn't, it feels like to me, watching back with the Disney animated, that's the story here is you shouldn't tell lies because your nose will grow. And that's what the moral of the Disney story was. But whereas with this, they use that as a story device on one or two occasions, and then towards the end it was like a whole thing, but it wasn't beaten over your head, because that's not what was important. That wasn't the message that was important. And I think that as much as anything, this was very much a movie about the bonds that we have, and then also understanding that there will be a time when you have to let go.
Yeah.
And so the themes were very mature. The movie was in many respects pretty dark. I thought if this does not win best animated at the Oscars, then somebody fucked up, right?
Yeah.
Somebody made a boo-boo. And I think that this could also likely should be nominated for a lot of the technical awards as well. Obviously art direction, things of that nature, set design. Did you watch the making of featurette?
I did not.
Oh my God.
I just haven't watched it yet.
I think that for me personally, having watched that really retroactively enhanced the experience of watching the movie, because you see just how wild these stop motion, because this is all stop motion, and these are all like various puppets and what have you. And Pinocchio, for example, when they use him, like the main puppet that they're using, which is probably about this big, and he has these silicone replaceable faces. And that was one of the things that I didn't necessarily think about it per se, other than just being like blown away by it and marveling at the technique. But they say in the featurette, Guillermo Del Toro is known for to be a live action director, and one of the things that he wanted to bring from live action to stop motion and animation in these puppets is being able to convey thoughts and emotions as they're happening in real time on the characters' faces. And I think that that's the thing that it was like, to me, this is more. So we had the conversation earlier in the podcast episode. So if you're just listening on or watching on video, you check out the pod episode. But when you talk about art direction or design, I don't see how you can compare something like Avatar or any of the Marvel things or any of the CGI stuff to this. This is a mastercraft in art. Like, this is master's level art design and art direction. And like I've said it before, like animation, I'm a sucker for hand-drawn animation, and stop motion animation is timeless. Yeah. It's timeless, and we look at things like CGI and computer generated animation, and it's like, well, we have we started with something like Toy Story, and now we have something like, Avengers Endgame. But to me, something like this is always going to look good. And I thought that it's, and they say in the featurette that it is kind of a lost art, but yeah, I mean, the story was, I mean, at the end of the day, it's Pinocchio. It's a new take or a new spin on the classic tale of Pinocchio, and maybe with a little bit more adult themes. But to me, the thing that really stands out about this is just how beautiful it was, how lifelike they made all of the characters seem, the attention to detail down to like the weathering on the buttons in Geppetto's coat was just incredible. I think that there should be a lot of hardware coming to the folks that made this movie.
I agree. I mean, just without seeing that yet, it was just the attention to detail just on Pinocchio.
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool. So I am looking for, I will watch it. I just honestly forgot to watch that 30-minute extra special, but I will, because I think it probably is very cool, and I'm excited because I really like this movie.
Yeah. Excellent. I would say as far as watching with your kids, mine got bored. They weren't like scared or anything.
I could see that. Yeah.
They just kind of like were, because it is a little long, that sort of thing. But the beginning might be a little heavy for some kids, I would say. But overall, what would you give it out of 10?
A 9.
I think that this and Into the Spider-Verse, best animated movies of the last 10 years.
Because I don't think
that's
it's like Toy Story is like a 10, right? The original Toy Story is a 10 animated feature, and so it's very good. I mean, it also was so ahead of its time and did some things that were so different. It still holds up really well. But yeah, so I'd say this is a 9 for sure.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good barometer. I think anytime that you're dealing with stop motion, for me, the standard is
different animation. Right.
Yeah, that's not what I was going to say though. For me, the standard for stop motion is probably Nightmare Before Christmas, and I think that this is probably in the same vein as that.
We just watched it last night, or 2 nights ago.
Right.
That movie is still killer.
That's like I said. That's
I can't get over how good that movie is.
Yeah. But this is it's like I would say a 9. Yeah, 9 out of 10.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, moving along.